Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to I Love Balance. All right, so today we're going to be doing a green detox soup. We're still on day one. Ideally, we just finished doing the vegetable seaweed stock, and now we could actually use that for the base of these soups. As you can see, I have it right here beside me. So in this recipe, it calls for a whole stick of leek. Then we have 2 pounds of zucchini. 2 pounds is about the equivalent of 2 medium zucchinis. So I took like 3 smaller zucchinis for this. A handful or a little bunch of fresh parsley. We have a whole bunch of green beans here, just a little bit over 1 pound of green beans. We have about 4 cup worth of fresh baby spinach here. And we're going to be using some extra spices that I'm going to show you as we actually do the recipe. Some dried thyme, and some sea salt. And we're going to have some extra virgin olive oil that we're going to use in the pan to saute the leek, which is going to be our first step. But first, I have to cut up the vegetables for you. All right, let's do it all together. We're going to start with the leeks because that's the step 1. So I'm just going to move this for now here. We're going to move the parsley, move the zucchini, and we're going to start cutting up the leek. It would probably help if I had a knife. All right. So we want to cut it up in thin enough slices. You want to think almost kind of like onions here, right? So we're just going to use little thin slices. If it's easier for you, you can grab less at a time. I just like to multitask. So, just like this. Remember, at the end, once the soup is actually warm enough, we're going to be blending it all in with immersion blender. I'm going to take part of this now, and I'm going to be bringing it into the pot. So let me put everything in here now. This is a big pot. I'm going to be putting all the leek in here first, and that's the first thing that we're just going to saute before adding the rest. And while we saute this, we're going to be able to cut up the rest of the stuff. So we want a multi-step task always, right? I'm just gonna rinse this off really quickly. I'm not even gonna use my Kangen water at this point. What's a few leaves gonna do with tap water? All right. Keep cutting up the process. Almost done. All right, leek, step number 1, done. So as you can see, the pot is full of leek here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be adding some olive oil to it, and we're gonna be starting it. So I'm gonna put it up at about a medium high, but not too high. I'm putting it around 6 or 7 here, and I'm just gonna add it by eye. It calls for about a tablespoon, maybe a little bit more, just like that. I'm just gonna mix it up. And we're gonna hear it when it starts simmering. I think that's the water under the pot, but anyway, we're gonna leave that there for now, and we're gonna come back to our task over here. So with the green beans, I'm gonna do everything in one shot as well, because I enjoy, probably not, because I want to discard just the tips here. All right, we discard the tips here. sides, these little here. This is good. I'm going to use a bowl to put everything in. Back for now. Discard the tips. I'm trying to get rid of just the little pointy tips here. Just like that. Here, this is done. And then I'm actually doing a little bit of a mistake here because once I do that, I should cut it a little bit smaller as well. And you guys know me, I try to waste the least amount as possible. So there are still some little tips here and there. And I'm just gonna spill off. Here. I'm just doing it by eye here. At the end of the day, remember, we're gonna be blending everything up anyway. So really what I'm doing now is just making it easier to cook so that we don't have to cook it as long, and also allowing less pressure on the blender afterwards, trying to tear big chunks apart. In the meantime, I'm just going to go give a little stir over here because we don't want it burning. Ooh, it's already starting to smell good. Just like that. Make sure the olive oil is spread evenly. Leave it there for now. Get back to our task over here. So I'm not a professional chef. I struggle with cutting sometimes. Or I should say, I am my own professional chef, but I have never been, actually that's not true. I'm just gonna shut up at this point. All right, here, here, and here. Green beans, done. We're gonna keep the spinach here because that's fine for now. I'm just gonna move this to the side, and now we're gonna use the zucchini. I'm gonna do 2 at a time. The reason I cut them a little bit bigger like that is because the zucchinis actually cook very easily. And we don't want to overcook our vegetables, right? We still want to make sure that there's tons of nutrients left in them. If you overcook your vegetables, you end up killing most of the enzymes and tons of micronutrients that can't really handle heat so much. So the less that they're cooked, the more nutritious they are. So the goal here is just to, at the end when we blend up all of our vegetables, we want to make sure that they're not overcooked. Zucchinis. Now let me come have a look over here again. We don't want anything to burn. I really love the smell. For our next step, we're going to be putting in the zucchinis and the green beans with the seaweed stock, the vegetable seaweed stock, and a little bit of water. So the recipe calls for 6 to 8 cups of water or seaweed vegetable stock that we've made. I'm going to use half and half because as you can see, we don't have that much and we're making 2 soups today. So I'm gonna use 4 cups of the seaweed stock, and I'm gonna use 4 cups of filtered water. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm actually gonna add this first. Just like that. I'm gonna mix it all up. Look at all those beautiful green veggies here. There's a reason why we call it the creamy green detox soup. All these wonderful green colors. All right, we're just gonna let that simmer for a few extra seconds, and then I'm gonna add this here. So in the meantime, I'm gonna cut up the parsley. So with the parsley, we could just take the leaves off like this, but I prefer to also use the stem, because in the end, we're actually gonna be, like I said, blending everything up, and the stem of the parsley also has amazing health benefits. So why waste it, right? So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna cut off the edges, like this, and then we're gonna chop all of this up. Parsley is like really, really nutritious for you. And one of the main attributes is it's extremely high in vitamin C. And even more than an orange, actually. And when you think about it, vitamin C is actually the first nutrient, along with magnesium, to get depleted within your body when you're stressed. And nowadays, let's be honest, we're all stressed. So it's a good thing to actually add a lot of vitamin C on a daily basis, and magnesium, of course, but now we're talking about vitamin C. So I'm gonna leave that there. So now we're gonna add everything else in there. The spinach, the parsley, and the water. So we're gonna start with the vegetable seaweed stock. So I just put in 4 cups. So now I'm gonna fill up 4 more cups of filtered water for a total of 8 cups. Four cups, bear with me, people. Oh, look at who joined us. Our little Bagheera, wanting some love. For those of you who don't know, Bagheera is my cat, and I love him very much. All right, so now we've got this. We're gonna have to wait for it to come to a boil, so I'm gonna bring it up just a little bit more, and I'm gonna add the rest of the stuff now. So I'm gonna add the rest of the parsley. And the rest of the spinach. So as you can see, very, very green soup. Just gonna mix it all together. All right, just making sure that it's all mixed up. It already looks delicious, but now for the final step, we're gonna add the spices. So for the thyme, we have some dried thyme here, and it calls for 2 teaspoons. So I have my little teaspoon measurement here. I'm gonna add it to the pot, just like this. So we've got 1 full one here. I like to be generous with my spices, so I really don't mind if it goes overboard a little bit. There you go. 2 like this, and now we're just gonna add some sea salt. And for the sea salt, I'm just gonna sprinkle it all on. I'm gonna be a bit generous here. In the end, everyone has different tastes. So if you like your stuff really salty, you add whatever salt you think then, and after, later when you're serving the soup, maybe you wanna add a little bit extra. It's entirely up to you. So now we wait. We're gonna wait for it to boil. Actually, I'm gonna keep mixing this up, but we're gonna wait for it to boil. And once it boils, we're gonna simmer it down again, and we're gonna let it sit for about 10 to 15 minutes. And after the time is up and the vegetables are well cooked, not too cooked, but well cooked, enough to be able to blend it up with my immersion blender that I'm going to show you right after. Okay, so it has now been about 15 minutes and we're going to be taking the cover off and look at what we've got in here. So it's on a low simmer. I've put it a little bit lower now, but we're going to turn it off completely and we're going to take it right off the heat over here. Excellent. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a few basil leaves here. Take the bottom ones. Excellent. You don't want to take too much from one plant. There you go, just a few basil leaves like this. I'm actually going to chop it up really, really quickly over here. As you can see, the leftover from our juices that we were doing in the meantime, because we're trying to be productive. So while we waited for those 15 minutes, we got an amazing juice done, as you've seen in the video. So we're going to use the basil, put it in. I'm just going to mix it all up again. And then I'm going to plug in the immersion blender and blend it all up straight from the pot. Let me move this for now. Okay. All right. I'm gonna dip it in because if I don't have it in there, it's gonna splash everywhere, right? As you can see, it's already starting to turn into a wonderful soup here, and it's using some mussels again at the same time. There's still some stuff left in there, a zucchini. Almost done. Everything's almost all blended up. It smells wonderful. All right, let's see. Oh, another zucchini here. See, I could see them and I trap them in. There you go. Nice and clear. There's no more big chunks of stuff going on. Oh, one last one here. Excellent. So our creamy green detox soup is ready. I'm just gonna wait a little bit to let it cool before I transfer it into any containers. Because I have glass containers, it doesn't really matter. But if you have plastic containers at home and you transfer really, really hot, soup into plastic containers, you're gonna end up, the plastic is actually gonna melt into your food. And when you're eating your soup afterwards, even if your container looks like it's intact, there's still a little bit of plastic that's leaching into your food. So especially if it's hot, like a soup, right? So if you're putting cold stuff in a plastic container, that's fine, don't worry about that. If you're putting really, really warm stuff, I would highly suggest to just wait for it to cool down before you transfer it into plastic containers, because who wants to eat plastic in their food, right? And if you do have glass jars, well then, good for you. You don't really have to wait until it cools down. Although, I mean, just handling hot soup like that in a big pot, trying to transfer it into smaller pots, maybe is just wiser to wait until it cools down a little bit. Okay, so let's have a look at our soup over here, right? We have our broccoli mushroom soup that is now over. I turned off the heater just about 5 minutes ago to let it cool a little bit while we were finishing up the juice. So now I'm just gonna add some extra spices before we blend it all up. So I'm gonna add a little bit of ground oregano. The recipe actually called for fresh oregano, but I couldn't find any in any groceries. So I decided that I would go with the spices, the dried spices instead, right? Sometimes you have to do what you gotta do. So we're gonna add just a little bit like that by eye. Just like that, excellent. That was about 1 teaspoon. And now we're gonna add the rest of the basil and the parsley that I chopped up. Excellent. We're gonna mix it all up properly. Just like that. And then the soup is gonna be ready to blend. So same principle as we did earlier. My immersion blender here. And if you don't have one of these immersion blenders, you could always use your blender at home or even just a food processor. Make sure it's a glass one, because if it's plastic, again, it comes down to the plastic is gonna leach into your hot food, and we don't want that to happen, right? All right, let's do this together. Excellent. So there's no more chunks in there. It's nice and liquid, and it smells absolutely amazing. So now, once we've done this, the goal is to wait for it to cool down once again, and then we could put it either in our glass or our plastic jars so that we could store it. I mean, if you're hungry right now, like I am, serve yourself, and then keep the rest. So this is actually good. It keeps up into the fridge for up to 7 days, and then you can store it as well in the freezer for as long as you want. So yeah, we're done. Our awesome broccoli and mushroom soup. And remember, the reason that we're doing all these different liquids, that we're doing the juices, that we're doing the soups, that we're doing the smoothies, is because the first 4 days of the protocol is a liquid diet, because it's allowing our intestines to, we're reducing inflammation within the gut, and we're also flooding our body with all these amazing nutrients. That's it, that's all folks. See you again soon.